There we are. We're online. Hooray. Let's tell the world. And just streaming game dev. Gonna make the hub world. Paste. And then we'll pop on over here and say the same thing. And then we'll pop on over here so we don't waste RAM. Exciting stuff, I'm sure you'll agree. Mr. Idle popped in to say hello. Hello, Mr. Idle. We are going to go ahead and finish up what we started last time, which is creating a hub world. It's not really a hub world, it's just a hub ship. Basically, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what you want to do with your resources, right? That's kind of the core of these sorts of games. And this is where you're going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to have a UI element on the right-hand side of the screen, and it's going to allow us to make various selections and go back out and all that stuff. Pretty basic stuff. So we'll just create ourselves a panel. We'll put it on the far right side of the screen. We're actually going to go ahead and, as far as I know, there's really no way to tell Unity to take up half of the screen with this interface. I could do it with code or something, but we're just going to go ahead and hard code the width at 600. And since this is as small as anybody is ever likely to go, that's probably fine. I don't really need to be too much more precise than that. The only problem with this is that it is quite obvious and annoying to look at, so we're going to have to adjust it until it's a little less obvious and a little less annoying. And then what we're going to need to do is make this look nice. I don't have any good sci-fi source images loaded into this particular project. I could create new ones. I think it's probably just something, I'll just leave it like this for now, and I'll create new ones off screen because it requires you to do slicing and stuff, and who wants to watch that? No, it's much more interesting to watch a guy make menus, right? So we're going to call this the base menu. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to have things here in the panel that the player can do. You know, create some lists of things that are happening and that sort of stuff. The question is, do we want it to be white or black or whatever other color we'd like? To be honest, I think what we actually want is two panels, just because that would look better. So what we're going to do is we're going to have one panel that is 200 wide, and then we're going to duplicate that, and we're going to have another panel that is 300 wide. And we'll make this other panel a little bit smaller, like so. And then what we'll have is just two sets of things. Over here will be text, and in here will be buttons. So for this one on the far right, we're going to just drag it to the end because it's on the right, just to make it easier to remember. We're going to call this the text stuff, and we're going to call this the button stuff. We're going to have it have a vertical layout group, like so, and we're just going to put in some stuff like that and control this, and then we're going to add in a button or 8. There's our button, and you can see that the button doesn't naturally integrate into the vertical layout group, which I think is a little silly, but you can add in a layout element and it'll work fine, and then you can create as many buttons as you want. Yay! You can see that the buttons get all weirdly stretched out. We have a lot of options as to exactly how we would like to handle this. The easiest option is to set it up as an expanding content. So we'll just go ahead and have a preferred size, vertical content size fitter, and that way it'll always be the right size for our needs. We can add things other than buttons. If we would like to change up things and put like gaps and stuff, we can always put in just random empty space. And just to show that, we're going to go ahead and do that so that we can. So we're just going to add in an empty object, put it here, add in a layout control, give it a preferred height of 20. And I think we have to convince this to wake up. So we'll just delete a button so that it wakes up. There we are. For some reason, it doesn't always recompile instantly. But you can see that now we have just a gap. And that's good for breaking up our stuff into subsets. So we'll go ahead and create some buttons here. The last button we're going to want is a launch button. Now, in the long run, we're going to need to have something more complicated than a launch button. We're going to need to have something where it's it lets you pick where you want to go and all that sort of stuff. But for now, we're just going to have a launch button because we've only got one target scene. So to do that, we're going to want to add in a new small script helper for the scene loading. There we are. Boom, there it is. Drop this in, and tell it to load up a scene of our choice. And the scene we're going to want to load up is Garden 2, because that's the name of the current testing scene that we've been using. And the name of this scene is Home Base. So that should work. And that should actually be all we need to do to get this to be quote-unquote functional, because now what we can do is we can launch and go into our home base, or go into our other scene. It shouldn't take this long. Did that not work? It's hung. It should be... That took an oddly long amount of time. I think it's because it's not automatically loaded up, unlike in the release version. So now what we can do is we can do this all the time. Keep in mind that in our display here in the editor, there are some issues with lighting. I don't know exactly why that is, but apparently it's a well-known bug. This problem shouldn't crop up in the released versions. It's just an editor bug. Still, the other thing we need to do is allow you to go back to the ship. And there are going to be two ways that we're going to allow you to do that. But for now, we're only going to implement one of them. And the one way is going to be that when you hit escape, there's going to be an additional button. So let's go over into the garden and tell it that it's going to have an additional button in its escape menu. So here's the escape menu. And what we need is the actual correct escape menu. There it is, menu. So here are the various buttons, right? We're going to go ahead and put in a button for return to ship. Return to ship. And obviously the text is going to have to say return to ship. Return to carrier, I guess we'll call it. And we'll rename it here as well, carrier. And all we need to do is to have the scene loader here as well. This is an application controller. We can just remove that and add in the same small scene loader. Bonk. And when we click, we'll want to set this, set active tutorial. Okay, so this is just all nonsense. This doesn't matter at all. It's not going to survive the change to the new scene. So we'll load the scene. And that's going to be the home base scene. I think it's just one word. I might have made it 2 words. Yeah, it's just one word. And that should allow us to exit all the way back to the carrier at any time. We're also going to want to have just an empty slot so that people don't accidentally click on quit. There we go. Because that's something that is very easy to do. Accidentally click on quit, and then you quit out on accident, and oh no! Okay, I don't need the heat making loud noises behind me today. It's not that hot. Not that cold, rather. So now when I hit escape, there's a return to carrier. For some reason, instructions looks like it's spelled wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's not. And then it says, could not be loaded because it hasn't been added to the build settings. That's what I was talking about before. So what we're going to want to do is change the build settings to actually have this build settings. There it is. To actually have this new scene that we've created, home base. It's going to be the base scene, so we'll stick it at the top here. Come on. There we are. And I actually don't know how it determines which of those is the startup scene, but I think it's just whichever one has the lowest number. If not, I'll figure it out later. So there we're back in here. We can hit the return to carrier. Boom. Now you may have noticed that launching takes some time even with our system set up. Also, we need to have something where in the carrier we have free mouse. I forgot that it's going to be captured most of the time. But you can see how long this scene takes to load. What we're going to end up doing in the long run is these chunks will load in on the fly. And you're not going to have to wait for them to load. So the loading time for this will just be your ship. And then the rest will fade in. And that'll be nice, but it's not what we're going to do today. Today we're going to focus on just setting up this home base. Now keep in mind that I am hungry, and therefore it's not going to be a terribly long stream today, but there are still things worth looking at. We're going to want to have a small helper script here, mouse free with... there's a mouse controller. Oh, here it is, well-enabled free mouse. We're just going to go ahead and stick that right here on the main camera and do not turn it off. And that way, when you come here from the other scene, you'll be able to move your mouse, which is kind of critical, right? So what we're going to want to do now is list what's going on over here in this left-hand text window. And this has a variable size, as you can see. So we're going to want to be a little bit careful of that when we are creating the text boxes. It's easy to accidentally create text boxes that don't really work. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our text box up here at the top relative to the top of the object, like so. And we'll just set it up 5, 5, 5, and 40. -5, my bad. We'll turn on best fit text and make it black. And then we'll make it bold. And then we'll type in something that tells us where we are. Back at your carrier. I don't know. I can't really tell whether or not that's clear enough. Independent salvage carrier. Fun. I don't know. Call it something. What is it called? Space debris? What did I call this? Debris fishing. That's ISC. Independent Space Carrier Debris Fisher. And then we're going to want to create another text box, which we'll put below this one by manually moving the height to -45. And we're going to go ahead and turn off the best fit, make it left, and say, welcome home. And that's just going to be a real short little thing like that. And then we're going to want a big old text box for describing stuff. So to do that, we're going to make it the size of the entire box, but we're going to make the top actually chop down below our current top. And no matter how it resizes, that's going to end up being decent. So even if I were to resize this to smaller, it doesn't overlap with the text above it. It just shrinks the text down, as you can see. So shrink the text box down. So that's how you handle that if you were curious. Now let's go ahead and this text box here is going to be a contents text box where we're going to just type up all of the current situation, all of the universe variables that you've got. Now the problem is that in the other world we have a universe variable which we're actually going to just go ahead and get rid of because we don't need it. So here in our scripts there's a universe script. There it is. So we're going to go ahead and create a new empty object called universe. And this is going to not destroy on load. So we'll go into this universe here and add in a don't destroy on load command. Actually, the universe is, I guess it's okay. The problem is that tracking down the player ship I guess that's okay. It doesn't actually rely on us knowing who the player ship is. The only problem is that we don't have the ability to assign the player ship, so we're going to have to either have the player ship in this scene, and also don't destroy unload that, or we're going to need to track down the player ship when it spawns, which is easy. It's relatively straightforward. Now the pop-up messages should be relatively straightforward, but right now we don't have that canvas in this scene. We're just going to go back to the other scene and grab it. There's no reason to recreate it. In fact, we could grab the universe from the other scene. In fact, that canvas is probably where we want our universe to be. It is. Okay, so this is actually what we want. We're just going to grab this entire HUD element and bring it back over into our home base. And then we'll delete this element entirely, or change it over so that it doesn't include the message box. So delete this universe. And here is a universe for us. And that way we'll be able to get like pop-ups and stuff. But we don't have any indication of our resources. I'm trying to remember how resources work, because I actually already built them. I just don't remember anything about them. Let's close all the others and take a look in our scripts. No overload method takes 0 arguments, really? All right, so here's a science target. This creates our science, and you can see that we've got a list of research targets here in a dictionary, a static dictionary. The static dictionary is nice because it should survive scene changes. So when you scan stuff, you'll be able to figure out what's in your... we'll be able to add new stuff into the science target. There should also be a couple of others, but let's start with that. So that's the universe. We're going to need a new script to handle the carrier stuff. So we'll do that right here. We'll just go ahead and call this script carrier. And open that up. We're going to want to drop the carrier into the scene. How about on the thing called home base? Why not? And this carrier is going to be responsible for handling the various visuals and stuff. So we'll need to have this have a UI namespace and a public text carrier text, or contents text. And then here in start, we'll go through and grab all of the things we need. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to use a couple of for each loops. So first we're going to go ahead and get a key value pair of string float. That's not how you spell float, Craig. And then KVP of scanning target, was it? Science target? There it is. What's about science? What's in the science category here? Has been scanned. Scanned arbitrary transforms. That's for tracking it locally, so it's a science target that we currently are using. We can change that later if it turns out to be annoying. And what we're going to want to do is add in the string and the amount. So mathf dot floor kvp dot value plus there we are. And then there we are. And that should give us a list of all of the resources that we currently have. If we don't have any resources, it won't list anything, but it'll still say resources. And so we'll be able to tell it's working. So let's go ahead and just test that out. We're going to need to give it the correct target here. Here it is. Text stuff. There it is. Contents. And we'll just drop that in here. Save it, hit play. No, that's pause. That's play. Resources, nothing. So once we have that list, we also need to check out other lists. So we've got some other things that we grab. Let's go ahead and just take a quick look here. So the two things I want to track are the things you pick up and the amount of debris you burn. So for the things you pick up, I think it's in harvestable objects. So there's a list of all active harvestable objects, as you can see. But I don't believe that we keep track of it once you've actually grabbed it. Let's take a quick look here. This arm doesn't keep track of anything. It just does its job, and poorly at that. It breaks quite frequently. We'll need to replace it at some point. But this active keeps track of all active harvestable objects, not the ones that have been harvested. So what we're going to want to do is have another dictionary. So public static dictionary string int collections. That will survive changes. Now here in the harvestable objects, we have to remember to destroy, yeah, there it is, remove it. So what we're going to need to do is when we are harvested, we'll want to add ourselves to this collected list. However, we currently don't do that. So let's take a quick look here. So here's where we do it. If we've moved it into the, so if we've grabbed it, then we do this whole thing where we set all of this to nonsense. What we're going to want to do is add it to the harvestable object collected list as well. So if harvestable objects.collected.contains key cargo target.name, then add it. And then harvestable object dot collected cargo target dot name plus plus. There we are. And that should allow us to keep track of everything we've harvested. And over here in the carrier, we'll go ahead and add those in as well. Same basic setup. It's an integer this time. And it is on the harvestable object. It's obviously in a namespace, ship namespace. So we'll go ahead and have that here. Yeah, using ship. There we are. And then the last thing we're going to want to do is keep track of how much stuff we've burned. And we can do that by going down into the push objects and trying to figure out where we're going to store that. Is that under physics, cheap collider pusher? It's related to this. We can track it down through here. Draw instance to base. Go to declaration. Delete within. Here it is. So you can see that we have this delete within happening here. The only problem with this is it's going to count small and large objects as the same at the moment, but that should be okay. So we'll have a public static float burned metal equals 0. And then down here we'll say burned metal plus equals res times metal amount. And then here we'll take a float metal amount. Metal size equals 1. Metal size. There we are. We'll try and figure out exactly what's going on there. I'm not actually sure that this is how we want to do it, because it might be that the this isn't how we want to do it, but that's okay. We'll figure it out later. For now, we'll just go ahead and have it be a flat 1. So remember how much metal we have. And then over here in our universe, we can just remember that. So we'll go ahead and our draw instance base burned metal, we're going to start it at 100. just so that we've got something, right? And then over here in our carrier, we're going to list that first. Metal slag, and then the amount of, so it's a draw instanced base dot burned metal plus metal slag. Perfect-ish. This is a very basic way to do stuff. It's not terribly interesting or exciting. I'm not populating something with graphics or anything. But you can see now that we have 100 metal slag and nothing else. But this should automatically update when we start to get stuff done. So obviously we still have this long loading time where we are trying to get to this new scene. We'll deal with that later. For now, we're just going to have to live with it. And it's also dark. Either way, slow down. So we should be able to scan this object. Bonk. There we go. And then we should be able to put some stuff like this. And then we should be able to go back to the carrier, and it should have 106 metal slag, and our mouse is stuck again. That's really a strange bug. Also, what's up with the screen at the bottom there? What's this? Oh, of course there's going to be some errors due to the universe overlapping. But I should have more than just metal slag. I should also have scanned something. Did I forget to make it so that when you scan something, it actually gets added to the list of things you've scanned? Because I can imagine that I didn't test that very well. I don't really care. It works good enough for the moment. And that's enough for me. Now, we don't currently have any options for you to do stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and put in a placeholder. So let's go ahead and here in our core world, we're going to delete some of this stuff that it doesn't make any sense in this particular universe. And then we're going to go over into our garden and delete the ones that we don't need there. Grind. The inability to find the player ship is probably what made that break. So we're going to go into our menu. Nope, that's not it. Our HUD, there it is. We don't need this. Boom. And instead what we're going to do is delete the message box because we've already got one. However, the problem with this is that we currently don't track down the ship. So we're going to go over here into the player ship and then open up the ship script and make sure that it volunteers itself. And it might already do that. Start. DoTween.init. We don't actually use DoTween anymore. We're going to go ahead and have this add itself to the universe. Universe.playership equals this. I actually don't think I can do it like that. I think I have to do live.playership. There we are. That should be fine. Now we should be able to keep track of the player ship. Everything should run fine. We shouldn't have overlapping units. What we are going to do is I am actually going to go ahead and put the universe back in here. No, I'm not going to bother. We might do it some other time. But the home base, we're going to have multiple universes get loaded up, and so we're going to want to have the universe kill itself if it already exists. If live, return, and destroy game object, return. That way we'll never have more than one. That'll keep us from having some of the problems we were going to have, but it's not what I really wanted to get going here. What we want to do here with the home base is create a menu that we can use to build stuff. So we're going to go ahead and create a new panel, which we'll put on the left. And then we're going to make this panel have a grid layout group, like so. And we could fix this to be different or however we would like it to be. But basically, I guess we should probably have multiple grid groups. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this for future, but I guess it doesn't matter at this point. We're just going to test it out. We can put in some padding on the top. This is a nice trick if you want to put like letters and stuff at the top. text at the top. So from here we can put in a text box. And by default, it will try and align itself with the grid that we've created. But we can add in an ignore layout. Here it is. And then we can put in whatever we want in terms of the visual. And we'll just go ahead and have it describe what we're looking at, because otherwise the player will be confused. Build menu placeholder. And we'll go ahead and make that like 25 and centered. We're going to go ahead and move that down a touch. It's a little bit too high up. And we're also going to need a button to close our build menu. So button. And once again, we want to have a layout element that ignores the layout. Pin that to the upper right corner with a X and a Y. I'm going to make this a 5, 5, negative 5, negative 5, and like 20, 20 or thereabouts. And we'll make it just have a little X. And what that'll do is it'll just turn off this build menu. There we are. Very, very basic stuff. So, build menu. That might be a little small. Well, if it's too small, I'll deal with it later. I might as well make it a little bit bigger. Let's make it 30, 30. And then what we're going to want to do is add in some build menu stuff. So these are going to also be buttons. We're going to add in layout elements so they fit correctly. And then we can have them be whatever we want. Notice that this text box is a little bit too tall. That's fine, not a big deal. And then down here, this will be exit button. And then this will be options stuff. So we'll go ahead and just option. Now you can see that the size isn't exactly lining up. Now the reason for that is because the actual menu object, the build menu here, has a cell size of 100 by 100, but it has a width of 600 and the left and right paddings of 30, so that doesn't end up adding up. I can change it to 50-50 and that'll add up just fine, so that's what we'll do. Now obviously we don't actually have the ability to build anything just yet, but we'll go ahead and give ourselves the ability to pop up the build menu. Now normally what I could do is I could just go ahead and put in a build menu and then game object set active true, right? What I actually want to do though is use a toggler. There should be one in the small helper scripts. If not, I'll make one. It's no biggie. Yeah, I don't see anything named toggler, so we'll go ahead and create one. A toggler is just an easy way for us to be able to hook flicking game objects on and off into a Unity event. So public void toggle. If game object dot active self, then game object dot set active false. I guess you could say game object dot set active, not game object dot active. That'll do. Very basic. And we'll just go ahead and put one of those onto our build menu. Later on, we can expand this to include animations and stuff, so it's pretty straightforward to make this work however we want it to. Toggler, toggle, boom. And we'll go ahead and make this button actually have text and stuff. The other buttons don't actually do anything yet, so we'll go ahead and say placeholder. And then delete these and then recreate them. There we are. So if the build menu starts turned off, then everything should work fine. Fun, right? So the next thing I want to do before we sign off for today is I'm going to go ahead and put in some animations just to show that there is some, light ship activity, drone activity around your home base. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and create some objects within the home base that handle the animations that we need. And they're going to just be like drones, right? And the idea is that the drones are nothing but a volumetric light, a volumetric point light. For some reason, the volumetric point light did not spawn in the correct spot, but that's okay. We'll stick it in here. There we are. 0, 0, 0, 0. And obviously that is much, much too large given the scale of the ship. So we'll just go ahead and shrink that way down. There we go. And move it to the side. And then we'll just take a quick look over here in the game. You can see how it's just a little point. We're going to want it to be brighter than that. So let's go ahead and punch up the brightness and make it some other color. We can have different colors of drones flying around doing various things. That should be fun. Now what I really would like to do is to have them pulse and stuff like that. And we'll be doing that. We just aren't going to be doing it just yet. We're going to be... we're going to go ahead and do it in a couple of different phases. Just looking at the various options we've got. I don't think I need to worry about any of these, but I could increase intensity manually here. I don't think there's any difference between doing it there and doing it up here, so I won't bother. We're not going to be using any shadows, and that's all. I can increase the near plane, but I don't think it's going to do anything. Yeah. So we're just going to leave it like that. That should be fine. And so each of these drones is going to control several volumetric point lights. And we're just going to call them D0, D1, D2, and so on. And then we'll put an animation controller on this thing. Yeah, that's in the small helper scripts, which is not the right spot. Drone anim1. And this is basically just going to be us driving these drones in and out of the various bays. And we'll come up with a couple of different animations and cycle between them in different ways. But basically, each of these is going to be responsible for one drone slice. So they're going to land and take off within any one element. And then we can take 3 of them, and it should look fairly convincing, right? So here, we're just going to go ahead and start recording, and we'll move this into the drone bay to start with, like so. That's a little bit not in the drone bay. Boom, there we are. Like this, yeah. And then we can just have it fly out and fly around. It's not a big deal. We could also animate this in some other way, but there's not really any reason to do that. Let's see if I can shrink this. It's a little bit, yeah, because these are going to be slow animations. There's no hurry. We'll just move these around so that they feel like they are, surfing around. Let's have it drive real close to the surface so that we can see it shine, right? And have it fly real slow so that we can see the shine all the way across. And then we'll have it come back up and out, like that. And then we'll have it fly back into the bay. Like that. And what we're going to want to do is just have that be how that drone behaves. In order to see whether or not that looks good, we'll hit play and we'll watch it fly around. Now you can see this is fairly stiff and inorganic, but that's fine. It's a drone. Yep, seems fine. The last part of this is a really, really slow... I really slowed down because I zoomed out and I didn't realize it. So we're going to go ahead and punch this way up. Just dragging these elements much closer together. There we are. And that's going to be drone 0. And then we're going to just have a second drone 0 clip. So why does it keep selecting the wrong... whatever. Drone anim1b. Well, let's go ahead and just start with the correct drones. In fact, that was named wrong even. So we'll go ahead and just rename it. And I think that that will select this, so we don't have to worry about that. But I think that I have to drag... I think it must have created the animator in one of these directories. But I don't see it. This is actually going to be drone anim 0a. And then this is going to be drone anim 1a. I'm doing this all in play mode? Great. Fortunately, animations do get saved, so it's pretty much invincible in comparison. The downside is that I did all this in play mode to the point where the animator no longer is even on this. And I don't know where the drone animator is. I see animations, but I don't see an animator. I don't know whether or not that survived. I bet it didn't. It's no biggie. What we'll do is we'll just create it again. And if I find later on that I've got 2 of them, who cares, right? Oh, I bet that Homebase has the animator. Yeah. Because it has an animator built in, so when I said record, it thought that I was trying to record for the ship, not for the drones. So there we are. And we're not going to... Well, I guess we can create a new one. Boom. But what we should have is a drones controller now, and that's going to be the thing we're going to want to use. So if we go back to the animation controller here, we want to add in those other 2 animations that we created. They don't actually... Only one of them actually exists at the moment. But the thing is that what we're going to want to do here is a little bit more complex than that. We're going to want to come up with several different layers. Animator layers, thank you. And they're just going to go ahead and each one control a different drone. So this one's going to control drone 0. This one's going to control drone 1. And this one's going to control drone 2. And when we create variants, we'll just alternate between them and do whatever we want, right? It's going to be pretty straightforward. But for now, we've only got those animations, and you can see they're all lined up here. So let's go ahead and set up drone 1 at this point. We'll move it into the bay, just as before. And we're going to zoom out here, make sure we've got plenty of space. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and tag this at 40 seconds down as being in the same spot. And then we'll just fill in the space between these 2 with whatever we want, right? I think that this one should start by running around in the close proximity to the ship to give us a lot of glowing. The other one ended that way, so this one should start that way. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to have it come out around here and scan the side of the ship. Oh, that was a scale. I didn't want to scale it. Oh, I see. We're lerping. That's... I didn't expect that. We'll just go ahead and delete that after all. It's kind of annoying. Are these not These are frames. I'm an idiot. I thought those were seconds. They were frames. So now what we've got is a problem where that drone is buzzing around as fast as humanly possible. I believe that those are frames and these are minutes. These are seconds, and so this would be like the minute over here. That's a little bit more like it. Let's go ahead and just make sure that that's the case. Oh, I just want to modify D1, not everything. Yeah. So we move this. And if I hit play, we'll see how fast it goes. Yeah, so this is seconds. Good. We'll just move it down like this. And then we'll sweep across like so. And then we'll fold underneath and do a scan of the bottom where the player won't see us. And then we'll just take our time down there. No reason to hurry because the player can't see it. And move on over here. And then we'll come back up to where the player can see us. And then we'll come back over and maybe scan across the top here like this. And then across. And then we'll re-enter our correct bay. Now, I believe that there are other animation tools we could be using, but this will work for our needs. And there we have 2 animations. And now let's put in the last animation, which is for drone 2. And as expected, we're going to start here in the bay. Like this. And then we're going to roll out until we can see the seconds. I think these are seconds. Yeah, those are seconds. Good. So we'll just, as usual, we'll come out here. This one we're going to go ahead and take our time in this well, just taking a quick little look around, right? So come back up real slow, and then just scan here. And then what we'll do is we'll go up front, and then we'll scan the front of the ship. That's not always going to be the front of the ship, though. So hold on, I can't do that. Oh, don't delete it. Because that looks like the front of the ship, but it isn't. And the reason it's not the front of the ship is because we could be in any of the bays. So we're going to want to scan like here instead. And that should be fine. So we move forward and then we move ourselves back. But for some reason it pops. That's interesting. Why does it pop? Delete that and move it in manually. Oh, D0 position missing. I'm looking here. D2 position. Okay, so if we try that again, somehow it got all screwed up, but we'll manage. We'll figure it out. Oh, I forgot to hit record. And then we'll have it just glide along the edge here. That's a little bit too slow. There we are. And this will take its time. And then we'll have it pop over to the other side. And take its time scanning back up. And then we'll have it fly up. And then a redock. That's not quite where I want you to be. Perfect. So that's all well and good, but we do have some issues with the other animations not appearing to be working correctly. Did I see that? Did I see like an error? I didn't see an error. It was just... why is D0 position missing? D0 is right here. Well, let's go ahead and hit play and see what it looks like. It looks like nothing. What? Here you can see that none of these layers are playing. What's going on? Drone animation D1 position works fine. Did I rename D0 to D0 space? No, I didn't. Oh, these don't have a weight. That's probably one thing. Now, these have a blending override, and I'm not sure whether or not they need to be in blending addition. But this should work. I mean, there's nothing terribly complicated about what I'm doing here. No, I don't see anything happening. These guys aren't moving around or anything. And for some reason, the animator isn't playing them. What's going on? I don't remember this ever happening before. Come on. What if we change it to additive? Do you think it'll work then? I thought I knew enough about Mechanim to do this kind of thing, but for some reason, it's just not playing at all. This is super strange. So here in drones, we've got 3 animations. This one is strange because it says that it's missing. Drones, okay, I know what the problem is. There we go. That was made when I was on the home base, so it was trying to find the home base animation. But it's still not actually animating, even though now there's no problems with the animations. They're not playing at all. Well, what happens if I... No, I don't think that'll have any problem. They're not playing is the problem. Why would they not be playing? I can't believe I thought I knew how this stuff worked. I've done full Mechanim solutions before. Is this just something I've never noticed? Oh, is this not... No, that's the actual one. It's on drones. Drones. Oh, this is weird. Huh. Well. Animator, always update. Update mode, normal. Animate physics, unscaled time. I don't think those are going to be the issues. I mean, I could... It might be that the time... I've got the time paused. Did I pause? I paused time. Okay, so for some reason, one of the things I did was to pause time. I'm not really sure when I did that, but apparently, time is paused in this universe. Why? Why would time be paused? Well, it seems to work, so whatever. And so what we can do now is we can just duplicate these drones and move them into each of the bins that we want them to be in. So duplicate and then move, duplicate and then move, and then what we'll do is take all 3 of them, and we'll duplicate them, and then we'll scale them -1. And then we'll hit play, and we should have a crap ton of drones flying around. Now, these are obviously super synchronized drones, which isn't exactly what we want. So what we need to do is create some alternate animations for the other drones. Although, this does give me the idea that it might be fun to create some running stripes, you know? Let's go ahead and turn these drones off temporarily and create some running stripes for the sake of fun. So these are going to be spotlights. And we're going to want this to be, what does that say? Script, okay. So with the spotlights, they're cheaper. Spotlights are way cheaper than point lights, in case you have never looked into it. And so what we're going to want to do is set this up to be pointed straight down with a slightly wider radius and a shorter radius. Come on, spotlight. And we'll just move it into place. And what we're going to need to do is have a little helper script which will do a timing, a turn on and off with timing. I don't believe there are any timer scripts, so we're going to just create one. Easy timer. Public float delay. Make it a 1 second delay. Public float counter equals 0, and we'll go ahead and put in an event system. So public unity event on timer elapsed, and then public bool repeat equals true. Now the only problem is this might be paused. If it's paused, we'll have to figure out why. But either way, we're going to go ahead and say counter plus equals time.delta time. If counter is greater than or equal to delay, then counter minus equals delay on timer elapsed dot invoke. And if not repeat, then enabled equals false. Easy enough. So that should work. And what we'll do is for this timer light here, we'll call this a running light. We're going to want to make this running light be a cool color, something neat, right? Like this. And I'm not sure. That intensity is probably about right. We'll go ahead and leave it like that for now. We might not even need to make them volumetric. In fact, let's go ahead and remove that volumetric component. I don't think there's any reason to make them volumetric, but we are going to want to put in an easy timer, actually a pair of easy timers. And the reason for that is because one will be turning the light on and one will be turning the light off. Here's light on, here's light off. So these are going to have a 1 second delay, but they're going to start with different counters. Because that way we'll be able to get them to to trigger at slightly different times. So we're going to be on for, how about a third of a second, right? So that should turn on for a third of a second and then turn off. Time is paused. So something is pausing time here, and I don't know what it is. So let's go into the universe and we'll see whether or not the universe is pausing. I don't see any indication that the universe is pausing anything. So we'll go ahead and put in a little bit of a debug here. So debug.log time.scale. Time scale. Just see whether or not the time scale is on 0 time scale. Something's turning off the time scale. I'm just going to go ahead and do a search, see what the heck is causing this time scale to be paused. So here, small helper scripts, while enable free mouse. Oh, there's the problem. So I have a free mouse and it's turning the timescale to 0. So we're going to want to have that be a bool. Public bool pause during free mouse equals true. And then here we'll say if pause during free mouse, timescale equals 0. There we are. And then over here in the universe, we can delete that line. And we'll just go in and unpause our There, that should work a little bit better. And that means that we can make all of these go with with a scaled time, normal time. But they're paused right now, so you won't see it. This running light isn't going to work from the top of the ship unless we make it overwhelming. So we're going to go ahead and put it on the side of the ship, because that's dark. See? So when we do that, it should be a little bit more noticeable. See? So what we're going to do is we're just going to create crap tons of these and offset them all slightly. So I'm actually not sure if I can sync these up because these have such weird positions. It should be okay if we just roughly estimate what's going on here, I think. We don't need to be perfect. There we go. So these lights, we can now make them pulse in order, and we're going to do that just by going into each one and delaying it slightly. However, 1 second is clearly far too short, so we're going to go ahead and make it a 3-second delay. And then what we'll do is we're going to select these lights and then just increment each one by a small amount. Now the problem here is that we have to increment both of these timers, which is a little bit annoying, but it's not a big deal. 0.5, 0.6. I wish there was an easier way to do this. I don't believe there is. 7, 0.8, 0.9, and 1. And then down here we're going to have 0.7, 0.6, 0.5, 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, and 0.1. And now, when we hit play, they should, like, swoop, swoop. Unfortunately, they are not in the order I thought they were. So they have an unusual pattern. I guess that's actually kind of cool. We'll leave it like that. So now we have some lights for our running lights. Now, they don't bloom. They're not strong enough to bloom. What we're going to do is just turn down their width a little bit. Their width is, I guess if I edit them all over here, I turn down their range, it should be the same. No. So if I were to turn down their spot angle, because they're just too big at the moment. And then the two in the middle are pretty big, and I think that's just because the area is a little bit further away. That should do. So now they should be more focused, and now they bloom just a touch. Good. That seems like it. So now we can turn the drones back on. Now the problem with the drones is that they are a little bit overwhelming, and that's because we don't have any neutral animations. So what we're going to want to do is have some neutral animations that that just take up time doing nothing. And the easiest way to do that is to select our drones here and create a new animation. Drone anim nothing. And for the drone anim nothing, all we're going to do is tell this to do nothing. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to have it set the scale to 1, like that. I forgot to hit record because I'm very brilliant. This is only half a second, isn't it? Yeah, there we are. So we'll go ahead and have it delay for like 5 seconds or so. It's going to just do nothing. So we're change the scale to 1. There we are. And that should result in nothing happening for quite a while. No problem. We go over here into the animator, and you can see that we now have this anim doing nothing. There are actually several things that we're going to do, but right now we have this issue where there is no ability for it to randomize within the animator. The animator does not have any concept of putting random numbers into transforms. So we're going to create a simple script that will do that for us. And the way to do that is to go down into our simple scripts and create a new script, which we're going to call a randomize animator variable. And what we're going to want to do is we're just going to have a list of these and public string array variables to randomize. And then we're going to go ahead and have a public animator target. And then we're going to want to have that be something that we can call. So randomize public void randomize. And then we'll just say for each string variable in variables to randomize, target.set variable, set float, and then we'll give it variables to randomize name and a random value. There we go. That's pretty easy. We'll use a timer to randomize it past that. And, you know, should work pretty well. So what we're going to do is over here in the animator, we're going to want to have it go to the exit every single time that it finishes with an animation. And then these entries are going to be based on what sort of conditions are happening. So in order to do that, we're going to need to have parameters. And we're just going to have 3 parameters. We're going to have a D0, D1, and a D2. Right? Pretty easy stuff. So the nothing animation is going to be if D0 is less than 0.3, do nothing, right? And then segue out. Now this should just trigger whenever nothing else is triggering, so we don't have to worry about that. So now this should mean that a third of the time nothing happens, or less than a third of the time nothing happens. Otherwise, it animates with drone anim OA. We're going to go ahead and create a clone of that and reverse it, maybe with a different time scale, like -0.7. Oh, and I can actually make the speed. Oh, this is new. Oh, this is new. Fancy. I'll have to keep that in mind, but it's not something I want to do right now. So I can also create a mirror version, which I think it mirrors on the x-axis, which is actually kind of what I want to do. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that. So what we do here is this is going to be if D0 is greater than 0.3 and D0 is less than 0.65. And that should mean that there's an equal chance of this versus the other one. But we're going to go ahead and make this speed like a 0.8 or something similar. And the reason for that is just so that we can get more desync happening. And we're going to just, that's on D2 though, isn't it? What the heck? All of these, oh, that was on the base layer. That's fine, yeah. So what we're going to want to do here is just repeat that process for all of our layers. So we'll take this. Can I copy the transitions? No, I can't. That's a pain in the ass. So we'll go ahead and make transitions into them and out. And as before, we'll just go ahead and make this a transition if you're less than 0.3 on D1. Except for that was not D1, that was D2, sorry. And then here, same deal, but with D1. And as the other one, we're going to duplicate this, set the speed to something a little different, mirror it, and then have that be transitioned in if it doesn't trigger on the other guys. So transition D1 is greater than 0.3 and less than 0.65. And then here, same deal, 0.8, mirror, and then make transition in, D2, .3 and 0.65. And just to check out here, yeah, this is greater than, because I'm not very smart. And then same here, is this also greater than? No, that one worked. Make transition to into exit. There we go. So that should be a fully functioning setup. All we need to do is actually set it up. First things first, we can delete half of these, the mirrored half, because we don't need to worry about them anymore. Now, I can see already that these aren't properly lined up, which means that this one is far too far back. Not a big deal. We'll just move it a little bit. And we're going to want to actually probably delete them, but what we'll do is we'll add in the pieces that we need here. And that's going to be the animator debris, the variable, well, what did I call it? Animation variable? Randomize animator variable. And we'll just have those target their own animators, but I don't know if that's going to work. Yeah, it didn't work. So we'll have to have that manually set for each of them. No biggie. And the variables to randomize are going to be the same for all of them. D0, D1, D2. And we're going to want to have a timer, a quick timer. Simple timer? What did I call it? Easy timer. Don't know why I called it easy timer. And we're going to want this to have some odd delay, like 13, something like that, right? Doesn't really matter. And then we're going to want to have it trigger its randomizer. Randomize. There we are. And then what we'll do is we'll have to fix that for each of these. So it shouldn't be a big deal. We'll just tell it randomize, and we'll give it a different length for each of them. And then drones 2 should have the right one. Yeah. Okay, so that should allow us to have a fully functional set of randomized interactions. But you can see they still seem to be operating in tandem, and there are two possibilities. One is that the randomizer didn't catch them before they started. So if I were to go into the scene, or the animator, and I look at the parameters, you can see that they are randomized, but unfortunately it looks like the randomizer hit after the animator actually started its animations. So we have a couple of options on what to do about that, and I think that the... I don't know whether you can just tell the animator to stop. Reset? No. Stop, exit. Well, we can tell it to stop, right? Stop playback. And then we'll tell it to start. See whether that works. That does seem to have done something. I'm not really sure whether or not that's what we want it to do, though. Let's take a look at the animators. What we've got here is not playing. It's paused. And I don't believe that's because we don't have the... I believe that when we told it to stop, it, like, really stopped. Can I just start it over like this? Nope. Okay, so that just stops it. Great. So what we can do here is this default shouldn't actually be triggering. I'm not sure why. I don't know why this default is what triggers, because D0 is 0. And what should happen is it should go here, because D0 is 0, right? Here, rather, because D0 is 0. But for some reason, it's going there instead. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make these the defaults. Set as default. Set as default. Each layer, sorry. And then we're going to go ahead and create new transitions to the new drones. And these transitions will be set to fire if the values fire. And that should mean that the initial initially none of them drive anywhere, and that should actually be fine. As long as they're not synced up, it should be fine. There we are. So you can see that right now the default is not to do anything, and that means that they just float out here because that's kind of their default. But some of them have now started to move. So what we're going to want to do here is have this take the default values for these positions need to be something that's not out in the middle of space. So just making sure that we're not recording, good, and we'll just drop these inside of the ship. And that way they'll hide until needed. Now the other problem is we still have quite a few of these, and some of them are gonna sync up. So what we really want to do is have an animator where this actually plays based on a multiplier. So the multiplier that we're going to use, we're just going to go ahead and create a new parameter, which we will call speed. Now, the problem is that when we specify the speed, we're going to get a value between 0 and 1, which means that this drone animation nothing is going to be multiplied by a substantial small number, and it could be an incredibly small number. And because of that, we're going to want to have this be a very short animation. And we'll just do that in a moment here, once I'm done setting these up. Now the issue here is that all of them are going to be animated at the same speed initially, but that's fine. That means all three of them will trigger at the same time the first time through, but after that they should be quite different. So when we randomize, we're going to want to randomize the speed as well, which we do just by selecting these guys and adding in for speed. I think it was all uppercase, right? Yeah, I think it was a camel case. So now that we've got that running, what we're going to want to do is try it out, I guess. But we need to make sure that that short animation is short, because if it's long, it's going to get very long. 1 second is probably about right, because it could end up easily being well over a minute long. So there, now it feels a little bit more organic, doesn't it? I think they're a little too bright. Let's go ahead and darken these drones down so that they aren't quite so bright. We'll have range or an intensity drop. I think we'll just lower the intensity. The range is probably fine. So the other thing that I was thinking about doing was making them pulse, but I don't think I need to, because I've got the flashing running lights, and I think that's probably enough. Yeah, I think that looks fine. What do you folks think? I know there's at least one of you. Either way, what I've got to do at this point is decide whether or not this is worth releasing this week. I don't really think it is, because there's nothing you can do at the moment. So I'll probably hold off until next week and release it next week instead, once I have added in some sort of basic upgrade system, or maybe the spawning system. Right now, if you were to try and use this, you'd hit launch and it would just pause for 10 seconds and you'd be like, come on. So I have to have it actually spawn things in algorithmically in order for this to work, which has always been the plan. So it's not a big deal. It's just a matter of when I develop it. I think that having all of these the same color is a mistake. So let's go ahead and just start to do some final tweaks. I'm going to sign off in about 5 minutes here. So if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask. And that will be fun. Just have some Christmas colored animations happening here. I also should put in a background noise here. It should go like the engineering room in Star Trek, because otherwise it's too silent. So it should be like some wubbing and an occasional beep. That's actually not too hard. Let's go ahead and put in the occasional beep before I leave, because that's like super easy, right? So that's going to be attached to the camera. So we'll go ahead and create an audio source. We'll call this a ping. And what we're going to want to do is trigger at a random set of intervals. And so for that, we're going to want to have a random timer. So we'll create a new script, which we'll call randomized timer. And this is going to be exactly the same as the easy timer, except that it is random. So we'll just copy this and paste it in here. And then we'll delete this, and then delete this, and then post it in here. The difference being that now we're having a min delay and a max delay. Min delay, public float, max delay. And then protected float current delay equals -1. And then we have the same values for everything else. And then here what we do is we say current delay. Counter minus equals current delay, and then we set current delay equal to a new value. So it would be float mathf.lerp min delay max delay random.value, and then in start we do that as well. And now we have a random timer. We could also extend the easy timer, but whatever. I kind of prefer more smaller classes in this particular kind of situation. Either way, put on my headset so I can hear the pings. Neo Dragoon says it looks fine to him, which sounds good to me. Here is the ping. We're going to want to choose it. I'm going to go ahead and use the same scanning ping that we were using before. Was it the Coral ping? I don't think so, was it? I don't think so. That doesn't sound right. I'm gonna go ahead and use this low ping and drop that into our audio clip. There we go. And we're not going to have it play on awake. We're only going to have it play according to a timer. So down here in our small helper scripts, we have a randomized timer. And we're going to have it play every 5 to 30 seconds. And that should produce just enough pinging. Of course, I don't know what the current delay is set to. It could be anything. Let's go ahead and make this 10 just for a second here. Also, we're going to want to have this be a much, much lower volume. And we're going to add in some repetitive wubbing, but I don't have a suitable sound for that just yet. Oh, I'm just an idiot. You got to tell it to actually play. Play. Boom. Perfect. Good. So we'll go ahead and change that to 5 to 30 as before. We're going to want to duplicate that and have it have a different sound effect, like maybe the popcorn sound effect that happens a lot faster and a lot more quietly. So we'll go ahead and put in a really, really soft noise. Sure, we'll use that. Why not? So we drop that in here. Of course, if we use that, we can't do it that fast because it's a long sound effect. So we'll give it like another 5 to 30 here. And now we've got 2 sound effects. Do we have something repeating? Oh, we have wind. Sure, we'll use that. So with that in mind, we'll just create one more of these. We'll call it wind. And that's going to be our background sound. That is going to be play on awake and loop. We don't need a timer for that, so we'll remove it. The volume is a little bit louder than that, like maybe 0.3. And we're going to want to pitch it down just a touch. There we go. So that low crumbly thunk doesn't really work because of the thunk at the front. If it was just the creaking, it would work fine. No, that's not going to work. I don't think I have a crumple. I think it's just... Come on. I could have someone talking. I don't think I have a crumply thunk that's going to work, so we're just going to delete that one. And we'll just use the ping and the low grumble. Now that snapping is not what I like. I don't really like how that snaps quite so aggressively. So I might change the animators to have a slower fade in. These should have the ability to set up the fade-ins, but because it's coming in out of the entry, it looks like it isn't going to be very helpful here. It's not letting me set up. Well, I guess that's why they snap. Oh well. We'll live with it for now. We can always try and figure out what's going on with it later. I think that ping is still a little too loud. Let's go ahead and drop that volume down even further. You could also change the pitch. Let's go ahead and hear what it sounds like with a lower pitch. Yeah, I think that's probably good. It's amazing how loud it is, though. I mean, I don't even know whether... It might just be that my volume is up really high. Let me go ahead and check the readouts here. No, I mean, that's a pretty loud wind effect. You should be able to hear it quite clearly on your end, even with an 8 decibel drop like I've got it set up. Which means that the ping is really loud. Even with the volume really low. Take a look at it when it happens. Come on. Okay, that wasn't even a dent, so that's fine. The other thing I think I want to test is bringing this down to 0, so that it can occasionally happen twice in a row. T. Valmo says, why would it ping in space? That's you sending out sensor pings. It's your internal audio notification that you are pinging something in space. It has nothing to do with the sound effects outside your ship. I could also use like a sort of thing, like what do you? That sounded like a Batman sting, but I mean the things from you know, the little squirrely little beeping that happens in Star Trek. I could also put that in, but I don't have any squirrely little beeping sounds. I do have a ping, so that's what we're putting in. If I had squirrely little beeping sounds, I would use them instead. I could also put in bridge noises like people talking, but the only person that I have talking is me, so we'll leave it like this. That's no reason to overdo it right yet. We can always overdo it later. Isn't this a calming sight? Yeah, I think little beeping noises from internal computers would make more sense. I just haven't built them yet. Maybe I'll do that next time. Either way, I am starving, so I'm going to sign off, and thank you for showing up, and I'll be doing this on Wednesday and next Sunday. Next Sunday, I will not be doing this. I have to go 2,000 miles west for a week, so Wednesday will be the last time that I have a chance to work on this until February. So hopefully you can survive that long without me. I think I probably should put out a copy on Wednesday, even if it's not up to snuff, because otherwise it'll be like a month between updates. I guess it doesn't matter. We're still in early phases. If I miss a month, it's probably okay. You can let me know if you have strong opinions on the matter. Anyway, thank you very much for stopping by, and I'll see you next time. Oh, for some reason, it didn't stop streaming. Now I'll see you next time.